Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My next guest is Libby Smith, who is Miss Intercontinental Scotland 2024. I'll just read her bio for you. Libby Smith graduated from university in 2023 with a 2-1 Bachelor of Laws degree, and in the same year became a published children's author of 2 books. She now works at a well-established law firm in Liverpool, England, where she is pursuing her dream of becoming a family lawyer. Alongside her legal career, Libby runs her own sustainable rental business that caters to pageant participants, helping make pageantry more affordable for others. In her spare time, she works as a freelance model and social media fashion blogger. She also plans to launch her second business soon, which will further her commitment to sustainable fashion. Well, Libby, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on. I feel like one of the first things I've actually been asked to say to you is that my mum is a big fan of all your interviews, and she specifically told me to tell you this. She wanted you to really know that she is a big fan.
That's
So
that's
that's
so
my big my
that's
mum.
That's so embarrassing. Well, it's not embarrassing. That I love. Thank you, Libby's mum, for that. What's your mum's name?
Her name's Danielle.
Oh, I think I is it Danielle Smith?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen her name pop up. Okay, that's good. It's good to know. Obviously, Smith is a relatively common last name, but this interview is supposed to be about you, not about me. So thank you, Mum, for that. But Libby, obviously, Miss Intercontinental is coming up soon. You mentioned you're flying out in about a month, give or take, to Egypt. So how is all the preparation going?
It's going really well. So I cannot believe it's already almost that time. I was crowned back in May along with Daniela and Mia. So we've had quite a few months of preparation. And yeah, I think it's one of those, we didn't find out the date until quite recently. So I think now that it's been released and we actually know our flights and when we're going, it's kind of feeling real now. But yeah, I'm just really excited. We're out there for around 18 days roughly. So it's quite a lengthy time to be out there, but I'm really excited. I've never been to Egypt before, so it'll be such a fun experience. But yeah, it's all going good.
I was going to say the change from Scotland to Egypt, they're probably not very similar in terms of weather. Are you looking forward to the, let's say, more sun over in Egypt than you generally get in Scotland?
Oh, 100%. Unfortunately, I think Scotland is very much the same as the UK and Wales, like England and Wales. There's never any good weather over here. Even in summer, it's very rare that we get actual summer. It's pretty much just rain. I'm actually going to be in Edinburgh at the end of the month filming some content for Intercontinental, so I'm really hoping and praying that it will not rain whilst I'm trying to shoot the stuff. Otherwise, I'll just be shooting inside somewhere.
Yeah, I've been to the UK on multiple occasions now. I've also lived there for a little bit. I lived in Wales for a little bit, Cardiff. And yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the weather. There was a lot that I enjoyed. The weather was not one. Why don't we back up for a second and you tell the audience how you got involved in pageantry to begin with?
So I've been competing in pageantry for how many years now? Since I was 13. So I first entered my pageant when I was 13. I actually then competed when I was 14. So I think when I've thought about this, I've not taken a break from competing in pageants since 13 years old. Every single year I have done a pageant, which is crazy, and I cannot believe I've done that for this long. Probably should get a break at some point, but it's fine. I love everything about pageants. But yeah, so I started as a junior, so I competed in a pageant called Miss Teen Great Britain over here, and I did that up until when I was 19 years old. So I stayed in that one system, and then after that, I went over to a pageant called Miss Pageant Go UK. I was very fortunate enough to win that, and I was one of the youngest girls to win that title at that time. So that was an amazing experience. I handed over that last year, and then I pretty much went straight into going into Intercontinental Great Britain. So I had around 8 months of being a finalist for that competition, and then in May I was very fortunate enough to walk away with the title of Scotland. So yeah, I've been competing for a number of years now, but I absolutely love pageants, and I think it's such a fun hobby. My mum does pageants as well, so it's really cool that we get to do that together. But yeah, I just love everything about it.
Since your mum competes, do you help her get her content and she helps you get your content?
So we have this joke where we will swap roles. So I remember when I was prepping for one pageant, she would focus on me, and then when she was doing Galaxy, I would take the role of pageant mum, even though she is a 50-year-old woman and she doesn't really need me to pageant mum her. I kind of stepped into that role. So we just kind of keep swapping every pageant we do.
Have you ever done a video of the two of you walking together?
You know what? Actually, we have. I remember we did one at the airport when she was going to Galaxy, and we both had our flags. And I've actually never posted it. I can't believe I've not posted it. I will post it at some point, but it's hilarious because I just remember we just don't take pictures together when we're at events with our titles. We just don't do it. So I've actually got no pictures of her. So people don't usually think she's my mum because just don't post her.
Is there any particular reason that you guys end up with so few photos? I mean, are you just camera shy or are you like
I
in
don't
separate
think so.
areas?
I think we obviously go to the pageant events together, and then we just kind of. I think obviously because I live with her, I see her 24/7. I'm like, well, there's no point for me to see her at this event. I'll catch up with her at home. So yeah.
That's fair enough. I just thought because there's this sort of meme that, pageant girls, wherever they go, they walk like pageant girls. I don't know if you do this. And I've spoken to several, I think you know Chloe Lake quite well, who obviously is in the legal field as well. And she was joking that she'd walk up and down the corridors of her legal firm every now and then, just, bust out the pageant girl walk. And so I thought that maybe a video of the two of you, and people might not even know that she's your mum. I mean, it'd be funny. Be good content. So, but let's dig into the legal field. Now, you already said that you've been in pageantry for quite a while, and actually, let's start with this for girls watching in the UK. And there's obviously probably more than a few international viewers as well, just so you've got the context. Pageantry in the UK, it's like, how big is it? Because I've been interviewing people from around the world recently, and obviously pageantry is huge in America and it's huge in certain other countries. In Australia, where I'm from, it's very small. I'm now saying very small because I've heard about how big it is in other countries and it's
Yeah.
bigger than us. How big is pageantry in the UK?
I think now that I'm in the UK pageantry scene, I would say it does feel relatively bigger than probably what I initially imagined, but I definitely say it's nowhere on the scale of what America is like. I remember when
Mm,
I've been to America before, I remember I took my crown and they were just so unfazed when you walk through the airport in a sash and crown. They just I think they even said to us, "Oh, you're here for a pageant." They just knew already. But I remember when I was at the airport, for example, in Manchester in the UK, everyone, quite literally everyone was just really confused why there was a crown on someone's head. I just don't think, to the general public, I don't think people really understand it. It is quite a niche hobby, I do think, to some people. And I think a lot of people, especially where I'm from, it's a very, very small area. I live in a very small village. So a lot of people just do not understand it. And I think it's a shame because it is such a fun little world. And I think I don't know if you've heard about that joke of like the pageant hangovers. It is a real
mm.
thing. You also do get the pageant bug. That is also another real thing. Every time you go into pageant land, you do kind of have that itch to like just keep going back. So I think for the people that don't really know what it is sort of hard to explain it. I think especially when I first started competing, I think a lot of my grandparents, for example, thought it was toddlers and tiaras. That was the only knowledge they knew of pageantry, and they thought I was going to be going into glitz and stuff like that. And I was like, oh no, it's just a fun little pageant that I'm going to be doing. I didn't really know anything other than that, but I think slowly it is becoming more understood. But I definitely wouldn't say it's on the same level as maybe kind of America. I think America, it's just so normalized over there.
I mean, I'm interested into what drew you, maybe not into pageantry, because you said when you started pageantry you were quite young, but now obviously going into the legal field, I know from interviewing and chatting to fellow lawyers. I actually just spoke to some lawyers on Friday. There is a lot of contact hours. There's a lot of reading. It's not the easiest degree to get through by any means. and it's very different to the world of pageantry. When you go into law firms, they're all dressed in suits, collared shirts, very buttoned down because it's not actually legally blonde. Um, but I'm interested what keeps you going in pageantry. Is it like an escape from the reading and all that other stuff, or because you won't have much free time, I would imagine, studying law. So obviously you decided, yes, it's worth it to keep competing in pageantry. So what keeps you in pageantry?
I definitely would say it does provide me with a sort of escapism, I guess, from the mundane of real life sometimes. As much as I love my job and I love my degree and I love law, I think pageantry is just that little extra sparkly escape that sometimes you just need, whether it be once a month or however many times it is, whether it's events or even just dressing up and doing interviews, just whatever it is. I just really enjoy it, and I think as well it just it keeps my weeks exciting because obviously in the law firms day to day it can get quite repetitive, which is fine. I'm very used to that, but it is just kind of nice to just just sparkle the weekend up every now and then.
I'd be interested to get your feedback on lawyers in pageantry because I've interviewed more than a few girls who are either studying law or actually in the legal field now, and they compete in pageantry quite regularly, and they really enjoy it. And as I already said, as you already know, that the fields are quite different. But I'd be
Yes.
curious to ask you, why do you think there are more than a few lawyers who also enjoy competing in pageantry? Why do they do well? Because the thing that clicks in my mind is, well, you probably got to be fairly well read and well spoken to be a lawyer, because you can't be a lawyer if you can't speak. So I'm just curious as to why is it that we've got quite a few young female lawyers doing well in pageantry?
So this was one thing that I thought of myself. I remember when I would go to events and I'd speak to girls and I'd just ask them general questions about themselves, not related to pageantry, but more just what they do outside of pageantry. I was always pleasantly surprised to hear that so many were law students or actually working in the legal field already. So one of my things that I wanted to really do, especially being kind of quite early into my law career, was I created a platform called Stepping Up to the Bar. So I also interview girls in pageantry from whether it be university or even just being a law student, to then all the way being to barristers and solicitors. I was just really curious to see what the correlation was between pageantry and law, and it was always surprising to hear because quite a lot of the girls always have the same answer, and probably the same for myself as well. I think with pageantry and law, they do help you weirdly, like vice versa. I think as well, when I went for my law interview to get my current job, I think if I would never have done pageantry, I don't think I would have got my job, because I think doing those continuous interviews for pageants, it really does get you prepped for how to sell yourself and how to kind of advertise yourself for your dream job. So it's little things like that. And I think as well, if you want to be a barrister, for example, that's a lot of public speaking involved. And if you're a title holder, especially an international title holder, public speaking is kind of a given. So I think when you break it down sometimes, it's quite interesting to see that there are little links that you probably wouldn't originally have thought. And I also think it's quite a creative space. I think it does allow you to, I think especially if you have a certain cause that you want to go through, whether it be criminal or family, or if it's commercial, if you're really passionate about something, law is a really great job role to get into. Same as pageantry, you can really advocate for things that you want to advocate for. So yeah, I think there are a lot more kind of links than people probably realize initially.
Can you tell me a bit more about the options when it comes to studying law? Because this is something I haven't asked anyone before, but I've become more aware of it as I've interacted more with lawyers. So, I mean, you mentioned barrister, then you hear the term solicitor. Now, I don't know they're the same. On Friday just past, I was talking to corporate lawyers who are helping me with an AI app, and there's IP laws and things like that. But then there's the other side where there's family law, which I know you're interested in. There are some girls who are studying law because they want to get onto the UN. So there's humanitarian. So it sounds like there's a lot of diverse options when it comes to, you can almost like create, I don't know, that create your own career. I don't know if that's exactly correct. But how many options are there in the legal space?
Honestly, I probably couldn't even give you an exact number because there are so many, which I do love. And I think, especially when I was first being introduced into law back when I was in school, I probably only thought there was criminal or civil. So I thought there was only two options out there. And it's so interesting now to see all the different routes you can go into. For example, there's obviously fashion law, so in terms of like copyright, you can do so many things with that, and that's something that I never even probably heard of until recently. And I specifically want to go into family law, and again, I thought family law was specifically, for example, dealing with divorce and things like that. But it's such a huge spectrum of cases that can fall into all the different areas. So I think it is quite reassuring to know that there are so many options, because I think for a lot of young law students, it can feel quite overwhelming to feel like you have to immediately pick one option, whether it's criminal or civil. But it's nice to know that there are quite a variety of different areas out there. So when I was in university, I did a 3 year course, and we had many different modules that we would study. So, for example, like criminal law was one, family law was one, but in our 3rd year, you actually had the options to pick ones that you'd want to. So, I remember one of my options was actually human rights law, and I also did European Union law, and we also did, I think it was public law as well. So, there was actually quite a lot of options, and it's great to know that you also get that choice as well. But yeah.
What drew you into studying law in the first place? I mean, because obviously there's a stereotype that all lawyers are tedious and boring, and I have met some people who are like that. Although you meet tedious and boring people in any field, it's not just law. But I'm curious as to what actually drew you into the field to begin with.
So I think originally I've always been more better at in terms of academic subjects. I've always been better at essay based things. So I was never very good at maths or science or things like that. So I always preferred writing essays, and especially when you study for law, it's a lot of essay work. So that was one thing that kind of drew me into it. But also, so my godfather, he is heavily involved in law. So he used to be managing director at one of his old firms, and then he has now moved and he's setting up his own firm. So he was a great role model, so I could always ask him any questions, and he was always really just excited that I had an interest in it. So, but it was also nice at the same time because he didn't necessarily push law onto me. It was always just kind of an option if I wanted to take it. Originally, I was actually going to university to study English, so it was a little bit of a random switch. Very last minute, when I was at an open day, I just went to one of the law. I think it was just like a law little class, free for everyone to go to, and I don't know, just something just clicked, and I just thought, oh wow, this could be maybe something good for me, and I'm really really happy I chose it. It was great. I've never regretted it since. I think it's just one of those subjects where it is hard work, and I think career wise, of course, it can get tedious. But I think it's one of those, if you really do love it, you just have to stick with it, get through those little hard days, all those annoying little bits, and yeah. But I think law is worth it. It's just one of those you have to really decide if you want to do, because it is time consuming, and you're not going to have a lot of hours in the day after when you get home. So
Can you describe to other young women watching, obviously your experiences in the UK with the UK education system and education systems in different countries vary, but describe what it takes. Like, what if someone was looking, a young woman was looking at maybe getting into law for whatever reason? Can you tell them what are some of the qualities it takes and some of maybe like your journey? I'm just curious. So, in terms of how much study did you have to do? What skills do you have to be good at? What skills maybe are not so important that a lot of people think? But if they wanted to get into law, tell them about your story and what you would advise them in terms of entering the legal field.
yes, so I think definitely be prepared. Oh no, my light's gone off. That's awkward.
So
Anyway,
you can turn it back on if you want to.
no. Oh, do you
We
know
need
what?
your mum. We need my biggest fan to
Um,
help me.
no, the light. This right. Nobody get anything from TikTok Shop. Do not recommend.
Has it died? Has it?
And I only just ordered it. Well, it's getting a bad review from me on TikTok. No,
It doesn't matter. You're still looking great. So,
Carry on. This is another good thing about lawyers. Have to kind of just roll with things, whatever happens. But so I'd say when I was in university, you have to be prepared for a lot of reading. I feel like it's a given. I think when you do any degree, I think when you go in, you're all kind of mentally prepared for quite a lot of reading. But I don't think I realised how many hours after university, like after the lectures, I would be having to put in every single night. It's a lot of reading. It's still really interesting, and I guess the good thing is it depends on in terms of studying how you are. So some people aren't great at exams and some people prefer coursework. I found that with my law degree it was 50-50, so it was 50%
mhm.
exams and then 50% coursework, which I preferred because I just naturally like to do my coursework. I like that you get longer time to prepare, etc., kind of thing. So it's good to know that you have different options. It's not 100% just exams. You have like 2 hours to sit. It's good to know that it's also as well not just based on your final year. So I remember my first year, you just had to pass the year, and then that would get you into second year. And then your second year was around 40% worth of your degree, and then the obviously final year was 60%. So it's also quite nice to know that that final third year, you can kind of relax a little bit. There's not 100% stress of, oh my goodness, I have to get all these perfect grades in my final year. It's nice to know it's kind of evened out over the degree. And I'd say, in terms of qualities for someone that wants to do law or any aspiring lawyers out there, I'd say the biggest one is to be personable. I think you do have to have a personality in terms of being able to get along with other people, because I think depending on whether you are a solicitor, so you'll be working in the office more, you'll be around lots of other people, and again with a barrister that's kind of where you're obviously in court advocating for the cases, so you're going to have to speak to a lot of people. So I think as long as you are comfortable with communicating with others, meeting new people, then you'll definitely make a great lawyer. And I definitely say patience is another thing. Law is one of those degrees and jobs where I think, especially job wise, you're going to hear a lot more no's than you are yeses. I know, for example, for me, when I was applying for jobs, sometimes you just don't even hear back from them, and you'd be applying maybe 20 jobs a day, and it's just one of those. Don't take it personally. It's nothing against you. There's always that career or that firm out there for you. It's just unfortunately a very highly competitive field. So I'd say just be able to not take everything too personally against you. It's nothing against you. You'll, as long as you, as cheesy as it is, as long as you back yourself and you believe in yourself, and as long as you know that you'll be a good lawyer, then just stick through it like I did. I just kind of just kept persevering through my degree, and I was like, you know what, one day a law firm will want me, and then thankfully one did, and then here I am.
I mean, that is a very good lesson to be learning. I mean, you learn it in pageantry as well. This idea of accepting no's, not taking it personally. I mean, you get exactly the same in pageantry. You could compete in 10 years and never win a title. I'm curious as to, because it sounds different. The stereotype I had in high school of lawyers is, similar to the pageantry stereotype as toddlers and tiaras. For me, lawyers looked very boring and dull. And then part of me is going now, the young women that I'm talking to who have entered the legal field, they're actually doing it because they want to help people. It's interesting. I don't know if you've noticed this is a common narrative, and I love helping people. So now, if I was to go back into high school, I would consider law because I do
Yeah.
enjoy reading and I do enjoy dissecting cases and looking. Oh, this has been set as precedent that has not. But again, I'm curious as to your opinion. To what extent do you find that the people entering law are doing it because they want to help people?
I agree. I think nowadays it is a lot more of people's personal reasons and not
Hmm.
necessarily just wanting to get, say, a stable job. I think back in the day, of course, it was a lot more heavily male dominated, so I think it was probably one of those careers where a lot of women probably just didn't want to enter into out of fear of maybe not even being considered. But I think now, especially in the law firm that I work with, it's quite a lot of women that I work with. I think there's more women than men, which is also quite interesting to see how it's flipped over time. And as well, all the people that I work with, they are really passionate about helping others, and it's really shown in the way they speak to the clients and the way they really are so heavily involved in that person's life, and not just the case that they're working on. They really want to just make sure that they
Mm.
are getting help, and it's so refreshing to see that people aren't just kind of getting a job for the sake of it, and that they actually really are passionate about that job. And I think with law, essentially you are dealing with people's real lives. The claims and all the cases, they're affecting someone. So no matter when we go home at the end of our day, that person is still having to deal with real life issues. So I think it is important for lawyers to actually be passionate and actually care about the job they're doing, instead of just kind of just going in for it for the sake of it, just to say that they're a lawyer.
I was interested to hear you say that at the firm you're working at, there's actually more women than men working. As you said, I think that's a flip. I don't think that used to
Yeah.
be the case. From your perspective as a young woman entering the legal field, are there any particular challenges that you face? Again, like if there's a young woman considering entering law, are there any particular challenges you faced along your study or work that are particular to young women?
So I think I personally have been very fortunate in my legal career as of right now. I think in terms of when I was getting work experience, for example, after university, that can always be quite tricky because, of course, law is very, very competitive. So I'd say my biggest piece of advice is just making sure that your CV is as polished as it can be. But the most important thing I would say is actually have personality. Don't be afraid to put some personality in your CV. I think it's so important, of course, to have your grades and all that professionalism on that CV. But I think you have to forget they are just wanting to hire a person at the end of the day as well. So making sure that you don't sound like a complete robot on your CV will always help you, because I think when you get to that interview, they want to see who you are. They want to see if you're going to be able to get along with all these clients. And I think in terms of challenges, I think the only time it wasn't necessarily a challenge, but it did open my eyes. So when I was on a work placement, it was my first work placement, and I worked there for around 6 months, and it was a relatively very small firm,
Mhm.
and we do joke calling it a dinosaur firm because it was very, very outdated in the sense that they didn't really use computers. It was all paper based, and it was one of those cartoonish moments where you would walk into, say, one of the solicitors slash lawyers' office spaces, and you would just see their little chair in the corner, and you would just see stacks and stacks of paperwork and boxes. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so this is very outdated. But in that office, it was very small. There was, I believe, only around 20 people that worked in the entire office, and it was just, I think there might have been like 3 women that worked there, and only one of them was an actual lawyer. Everyone else was men that were in the higher up positions. And I think that initially did scare me a little bit because that was my first introduction, of course, of being into law. I was fresh out of university, really excited and eager to see law. And then I think seeing that it was a bit challenging for women to kind of progress into those higher roles, it did initially frighten me a bit. But then having this complete opposite experience now into going into this firm and actually seeing, wow, there's actually so many women that work here, and we're all treated equally. Everyone gets the same pay, and there's no prejudice. There's no sexism. It's really refreshing to see. So I think to any girls out there who are a little bit worried about facing any challenges, I think just persevere, don't panic. I think just keep with it, and you will find that firm that will make you feel comfortable and that will make you feel appreciated, most definitely.
That is really good to hear. Your experience with the dinosaur firm, quote unquote. That's interesting to me that anyone in this day and age isn't using computers. I don't know how you survive or where do you get your clients from if you don't use computers. I mean, you mentioned don't be a robot, which again is interesting because that was a stereotype I have in my head of all lawyers being the same and boring. You're obviously passionate about what you do. I'm just curious to flip completely from dinosaur world where they didn't have computers. just your opinion on AI, because AI has entered the space. One of the
Yeah.
things it's very good at is reading lengthy documents and then giving you the conclusions to draw from them. And that I'm just curious as to what your experience, if any, has been the intersection between law and AI. Because on my Instagram feed, I'm heavily into AI. As I said on Friday, I was speaking to lawyers about an AI app. I'm now getting quite a few ads about ChatGPT specifically for law. And I'm just wondering, like, what has your experience been with law intersecting AI, and whether you think it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, or a bit of both?
Okay, so personally in my firm, we don't necessarily have anything that's heavily AI. A lot of the stuff, so for example, we don't really deal with templates, if that makes sense. Like everything that we type will be from us. We don't tend to do any shortcut AI stuff. However, where I work in Liverpool, there's a lot of big firms that do lean heavily on AI. And I do think it can be a good thing and a bad thing. I think, of course, it can be helpful. I think nowadays technology is so advanced, it just makes everyone's life easier, whether it be personal or in the work environment. But I do think the only sometimes thing with AI, I do think you lose that kind of personal touch. I think
Hmm.
sometimes, of course, it's not yourself. It's generated automatically, and that's my only kind of apprehension sometimes with AI is that. Yeah, I just think sometimes, I think with my career within law, I just think of it as being such a personable job. And I understand obviously that sometimes there's so many multi-billion law companies that, of course, obviously AI makes it just that more convenient. But I do think it's important that we just kind of don't go crazy in the technology, keep everything personable, because at the end of the day, I think that's what the clients want. They just want someone that they can talk to, not just like an AI generated, like random text message kind of thing.
Did you hear about I think it was in America, the lawyers who got into a lot of trouble because they had ChatGPT basically do their work for them, and it quoted case studies, not case studies, but quoted cases, because it's very particular, right? I don't know much about law, but there's apparently these giant books where you can look up the exact case, like this
Yeah.
volume, that page, and it made it all up. And these lawyers got into a lot of trouble, and the judges basically addressed them like an angry parent dressing down their naughty children, saying, "What are you? It made up cases." So it's far from perfect, but I thought that was a really interesting sort of heads up. Like you can't just use your Chat GPT to write your essays or to do anything like that. And I agree. I don't think it's ever going to get to the point where it replaces humans face to face,
Yeah.
because I don't think anyone would rather talk to a computer screen than an actual person.
I agree on that.
Let's change tacks a little bit. Let's go into pageantry a bit. So, when are you heading over to Egypt?
So we will be flying out, I believe, on the 20th of November. We're flying from London, which is very, very exciting. So the three of us, me and my sister queens Daniela and Mia, are all flying out together. So we'll be there for around 18 days. The pageant is actually going to be held on the 6th of December. So yeah, I'm just really excited when we get out there. There'll be lots of exciting photo shoots. I know that at Intercontinental they love a good themed party night. So I know there's going to be lots of parties, lots of exciting themes. But yeah, it's really come around so quickly now. I can't believe it. I think we're under like the 8 week countdown, something like that now.
How's all the prep going? I mean, obviously, you're quite experienced in the pageant field. So, at this stage in your career, is prep a little bit easier? Or maybe, I don't know if this is your first like international pageant, which if it is, and maybe it's like doing something for the first time. So
Yeah,
how has your experience helped, or is this like doing it for the first time because obviously it's a big pageant that's international?
I'd say in a way it does feel like I've started from scratch in a sense because this is my first big international pageant, and I also kind of say even though I have done a Miss pageant before, I would say there is kind of like this difference. I feel like obviously I'm older now. When I won my last Miss title, I was only 19. I'm now 22, so I feel like I've also had to kind of my coaching has had to showcase that I'm getting older and kind of show off that newfound maturity as well, that also matches with the Intercontinental system. So it's been a really fun experience with my coaching and preparations this year. I've loved every minute of it, and I've just, again, just really wanting to be leveling up everything. And as well, I just want to give myself the best chance just to represent myself as a person, but also Scotland as well, as I come from a family. So my mum's side, they are from Scotland. So I just really want to make, obviously, all my Scottish family proud because they're super excited about this. Obviously, in our family, they're just like, what is going on? This is so exciting. And bless my nan, she tells all her little friends at the hair salon about me going to Egypt to represent Scotland. She loves it. So I think in terms of preparation with the international side, it is a lot more mindset focused, of course, because you are out there for quite a long time, away from family, friends. You're quite isolated in that sense from what you're used to. So I think it's also about kind of making sure that you're mentally strong, you're mentally ready to experience, especially because I've never experienced an international pageant. I don't really know what to expect, but at that same time, I've got a very open mind to trying new things and being open to new experiences. So I'm just really excited to get out there, meet everyone, and yeah, just see what happens. I'm just excited.
Have you prepared for the question of isn't Scotland just part of England?
I have not. I think, to be honest, I have been trying to memorize as many like interesting facts as I can about Scotland, just because I feel like, in terms of, and I always joke about this with my mum. I think when you hear other countries talk about their interesting facts or maybe like what they're known for, I always joke that Scotland is so wacky and just random, in the sense of, for example, I know Scotland is famous for the deep fried Mars bar. Like, what even is that? Who decided to do that? And then you've got all these other countries being like, oh, we've got this amazing building, and ours is the deep fried Mars bar. But I do feel like that just encapsulates Scotland perfectly. It's just full of just amazing, like, really people who are just really happy, just lots of personality.
It's interesting because I'm a big Gordon Ramsay fan, and obviously he's from Scotland, and he would often dress down Scottish cuisine because of the deep fried Mars bar. I mean, you said you've been memorizing a lot of interesting facts about Scotland. Well, actually, back up. Have you tried a deep fried Mars bar?
I have not. However, when I'm in Edinburgh in 2 weeks' time, I may be trying it. I'm a little bit nervous, but I just don't know how to feel. I don't even like normal Mars bars, so this could be a recipe for disaster, quite literally.
Okay, back up a second. We're going layers upon layers. You're a girl who doesn't like what, chocolate or just Mars bars?
Just Mars bars. I love chocolate. I think just Mars bars. We just don't agree. We just don't get on.
What? Okay, so then back up another one. I'm sure you know Olivia McPike, and she's from Scotland as well. And I think out of everyone I've interviewed, like hundreds of women, she's probably the pickiest eater I've ever met. Like she won't eat this, she won't eat that. She's never tried haggis. I know that's stereotype. She'd never eat that. But I'm curious, as a fellow Scot, what are your favorite cuisines? What do you like to chow down on?
So I feel like I'm a traitor to Scottish cuisine. I just refuse to eat haggis. I'm sorry, I just can't do it. I think once my nan, no, to be fair, my nan actually was going to prepare me a dish, and she was like, oh, I'd love to make you haggis one day. And I was quite young at the time, and I was like, yeah, sure. And then she made the mistake of then telling me exactly what was in it. And then I swore from that moment that I was never ever going to try that. And the funny thing is, the pictures of it actually do look quite appetizing, but just the knowledge of what's in there, I won't touch it. I just won't do it.
Can you describe to our captive audience what exactly haggis is?
So, haggis is essentially, how do I put it? I feel I kind of describe it as almost a potato kind of appearance. It looks like a little jack potato, the kind of shape. However, it's made of I believe it's the heart and the liver and maybe the lungs of a sheep. So it sounds disgusting. But apparently it's really delicious from my sources that I've heard from Scotland. But for me, I just won't try it. So I feel like I probably am not a true Scot in that sense, but oh well.
I will say I can understand you perfectly, which is the other stereotype we have with Scottish people is that you can't understand anything they're saying. Do you know over in the UK, do you know the photographer Brian Hayes?
I do know Brian. I've worked with Brian on a couple of shoots, and actually most of the pageants that I have done, he has always been the official photographer. And he does have a very thick, I was going to say Scouse accent. No, sorry, Scottish accent. He has a very, very thick Scottish accent, but I think that just makes it all the more fun to speak to him, I think.
Do you actually? When I was over in the UK last, it was for Galaxy UK, and you got someone like Olivia who has a Scottish accent, but I can understand her perfectly. She does like to speak very quickly when she gets excited. And when I was over at Galaxy UK, I had just arrived. I was slightly jet lagged, bear in mind. And then I didn't know Brian at that time. I subsequently found it was Brian. But this man just came up to me with a camera and started pointing to me and making these sounds. And because I was I couldn't understand a word he was saying. And because I was jet lagged, I thought, oh, I must be really jet lagged. Either that or I'm having an aneurysm or a stroke or both. I couldn't understand a word he was saying. And then I spoke to Olivia about it, and she goes, "Oh yeah, sometimes I don't understand what he's saying. So I don't understand if a Scottish person can't understand Scottish people. What chance do I have?" But I'm just saying because, for example, a lot of the Americans that I've interviewed, they can't understand a Scottish accent to save their lives. But I'm curious, your accent is not that strong
Oh,
Scottish. So are there different accents in different areas of
yeah.
Scotland?
So essentially, so I live in the UK. However, so my mum, for example, she doesn't have a Scottish accent. But then my nan, if you were to speak to her, you can hear the Scottish accent. But even I would say my nan doesn't have that strong of a Scottish accent. It's very confusing. There's sort of like there's like different levels of the Scottish accent, and I would definitely class Brian as the more kind of, I think the stereotypical Scottish accent you hear people being like, what are they talking about? I just don't understand. But I think obviously the more you spend obviously in Scotland or the more you speak to Scottish people, I think you do pick up on what they're saying. But yeah, I think sometimes I've got Scottish family that I think I go around and I meet them and I'm thinking, what are they talking about? And they're I'm like, what are these people saying? And they're my family and I'm like, I don't know what they're saying.
That's good to hear. So, the Americans and the other girls at Intercontinental won't feel bad if they don't understand. Although your accent is very intelligible, so I don't think they probably won't believe that you're from Scotland because they'll be like, "Oh, but I can
Yeah.
understand what you're saying." So we've talked about the legal field. That's your career. We've talked about pageantry, obviously. What about in your free time? I know that you said you have certain advocacies. You're looking at starting your second business. I don't know why. You obviously hate free time. But what are some of the causes or advocacies that you're most passionate about?
Yeah, so you are right. I hate having free time. Don't like it. I want to keep very, very busy. Myself and Chloe Lake joke about this because we just are constantly busy and we just can't take breaks. But one of the things that I did when I just couldn't stand having free time was I decided to just write some children's books. So I have published two children's books now. They're both about my little sister, and it does relate to my advocacy work. So I created a non-profit organisation called the Time for Talk Initiative around 5 years ago now, and it started off very, very small. It was essentially just at the time we were in lockdown, so it was just awareness videos on Instagram and Facebook, just talking about speech delay and other invisible disabilities that children have. As my sister, she has quite a few invisible disabilities, so for example, speech delay, and she also has a very rare genetic condition that has essentially caused her speech delay and also her autism diagnosis. So it's quite a wide spectrum, and one of the reasons that I wanted to focus on this advocacy is that just because I think a lot of people have this perception of what a disability is or what a disability looks like, and there can be quite, it's sort of like you're kind of not aware, but you have this perception, and then when you don't see that, you're a bit confused. So, for example, my sister, she can act out, she can misbehave, she gets quite anxious in social settings, and sometimes if you were to just maybe see her in the supermarket and she was quite stressed and shouting, you would just think she's a naughty child. But actually, she's feeling very anxious and she's having like a little bit of a breakdown. So you don't see that because all of her disabilities are invisible. So that was one of the things I really wanted to kind of remove the stigma around, and that is why I did write my books. So my books are about my little sister, and I have put a sort of, because they are children's books, I do put like a little bit of a kind of fairy tale twist on them. So my latest one was kind of essentially where she goes into a magical forest and she's talking to all these animals and that they can actually understand her. And it's, all my books have a very important message of acceptance, and I think that's so important that we start teaching children at a very early age to be mindful of one another and to be kind. So I think putting that message in my children's books, and then of course again in my part in my spare time when I find the time to do it, I also go into, so I've been into my sister's school and I've also been into many secondary schools as well in my local area to read my children's books to the children, and again to just basically spread awareness that we shouldn't judge one another. And I also go into libraries as well, and I've been able to read to toddler classes as well. So a lot of my advocacy work, I do like to link the creativity side of writing and being an author, but then also going in and doing public speaking and also giving workshops to children about how to be mindful of one another, because I think unfortunately over the years, so for example, there's 10 years between myself and my sister, so I've always been kind of aware of her growing up, so I've always been very mindful of how I'm around her, but I think sometimes when you see other people maybe not understanding her, it can be quite upsetting. So my book was kind of my gift to her and the world to show who she is as a person, and also to show like who the other children are that have her condition as well. So yeah, I basically have no time.
Which we'll get to in a second. I'm just curious, how did your sister feel about you writing a book about her? Because I've written a couple of books specifically for friends, and I make it a bit of a joke. I sometimes make it like a children's story, but then tell some very unchildren-like stories, if that makes sense. But how did your sister react to you publishing 2 books about her and actually going into schools and her knowing, actually, that story, that's about me?
So I was a little bit nervous at first because also her understanding, so she is 12 years old, but I would say due to one of her, so her genetic disorder, one of the kind of side effects of that is that she has a diagnosis called global developmental delay, which essentially means that although she's 12, her mental capacity is maybe of that of around a 5-year-old. So I wasn't really sure if she would understand what was going on, but I remember when the books arrived, I came and shown her, and one of my friends, so both my friends have illustrated my books, and they did an amazing job of capturing my sister. She's got very, very distinct curly hair, and she immediately recognised it was her. She got really excited, she was running around, and then what even made it more special was the first time that I actually took my book out and into the classroom. Lexi was there with me, so she actually helped read the book to the class. She was sat on my knee, and it was just a really wholesome moment. So I think it's something that's actually been really nice to share with her, and I'm just like really grateful that we have that together.
It's funny when you do that for a young person, they get really excited. I
Yeah.
feel like when you do it for someone who's a bit older, they get excited, but they start crying because it's like a different emotional reaction. When you're young, you're excited, screaming about it. When you're old, you go, "Oh my God," and they start tearing up. But I mean, that's a lovely story, and obviously that advocacy work, that's the sort of advocacy work that I really love, because it's not just talking. There's a lot of talk, but actually going, call it the grassroots level, going to the schools, going to the young children, reading a book that you've written from your own deeply
Yeah.
personal experience. And hopefully, the reason I love working with the younger generation is because you might have a magnified effect over time. If you get them when they're 5 or 10 years old, you've got a whole lifetime. And then you take that out years and years, it could radically change the course of their life. But let me just ask you a related question, but perhaps a silly question. why do you hate free time? Like, what happens if you've got nothing to do, or have you never allowed that to actually happen?
Do you know what? I think it's just one of those where I feel like I can't sit still. I feel like whenever I've got free time, I'm just then in that free time planning of what I will do next. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the pageant girl slash lawyer in me. I just feel like I've just always got to be go go go. And yeah, I think the only time I ever relax is when I'm on holiday. But even then, I'm thinking of the next trip. Where am I going to go next? So it's quite crazy, to say the least.
See, I like going on holidays and having a few key events planned. But then you go on holidays with some people who take, their Excel spreadsheet of where you're going to be every minute or every day. At 9:03 a.m. we'll be here, but then at 9:07 we have to catch the bus, take a photo op here. And I'm just like, it's supposed to be a holiday. Can we just
Can
chill?
we relax,
Can we
guys?
it would be good because that's the idea of a holiday. But I know that let me ask you about Chloe. Like, I know Chloe quite well. I've interviewed her on several occasions, had her on my podcast a bunch of times, and I love her. We call her the brain because she's so intelligent. Tell me about Chloe, and specifically, I mean, I saw that she was running marathons and stuff. So, I mean, in her free time, apparently she has no free time, but obviously she was bored and decided, I'll run a marathon because why not? So, how do you know Chloe, and do you have any plans to run a marathon yourself?
Oh, so Chloe's actually my interview coach, which is even more amazing because I think when we first started our sessions, we obviously bonded over the fact that we were both in law. And ironically enough, I she has inspired me. I really do want to not go for a whole marathon, but I want to start doing a half marathon. That's like my next goal. I don't know if it'll be anytime soon, but it is one goal of mine to run a half marathon at some point. So yeah, I'm just obsessed with Chloe. Anything she does, I'm like, right, I want to do it as well.
Sounds like you got a little sister, big sister thing of
Yeah.
your own going here. How old is Chloe though? You said you're 22. She's not much. Not. I don't want to throw her under the bus.
Yeah.
I'm trying to desperately think now how old is, but she's not that much older than you, is she?
No, she's not. No, I think I want to say maybe like 3 years. I don't want to. I don't actually. I feel awful. I forgot her name. I do not want to say that she's older than what she is or anything.
Yeah. With
I, I don't think it's a big age gap at all.
how does it feel though having someone who you're working closely with, but then you obviously have a couple of very not niche passions, but a couple of passions that are close to your hearts. But it's got to be a weird combination because you're both obviously pursuing a law degree, which you're both passionate about. It's not just a job for you, as you already said. And then
Yeah.
you combine that with the pageantry, which is very niche. So when you two get together and you just chat, I mean, like, what do you talk about? Because there'd be so many topics that you both probably wouldn't shut up about. So what's just a social conversation between the two of you like?
I love chatting to Chloe because, and I remember Chloe's even said to me, like, I feel like when we both speak, it feels like we're speaking to ourselves in a sense, that we are very similar. And of course, Chloe was a former Miss Galaxy Scotland, so of course, she, again, Scottish representative, so practically just feels like we're the same person, but just at different stages of law and pageant. So it's great. Every time I actually saw her, I think it was maybe like 2, 3 weeks ago at an event, so it was lovely to just have a catch up with her, and I just think she's great. And yeah, we just always just chat for ages, just about everything, life. So always having like a nice girly catch up. It's great.
I remember I was back during lockdown. I was running a few games nights, and we had Team England, Team Scotland, and Chloe wanted to play. I wouldn't let her play initially because she was too smart and she basically dominate everyone. So I said, "You can't play," and then she was begging me to allow her to play. And I said, "Well, because she's got mixed heritage, right? So she could either play for Team England or Team Scotland." And when I asked her, she said Team Scotland, otherwise my mum will disown me. So just to back up, can you talk about, because the Scottish people are very proud of being Scottish, and rightly so. So how much of that has been in your upbringing, that pride in being Scottish?
Yeah, so I love that I am Scottish. So obviously I have English and Scottish heritage, but I feel like I'm equally as proud of both of them. I think as well, I I always kind of joke that I'm a very old soul, that I just love that. I think one day I just want to live in a little countryside cabin like a little cottage, and I feel like weirdly I'd never seen my nan's house that she grew up in. So she grew up in Brora in the Highlands, which is a very small little village in Scotland, and her my dream house is actually the house she grew up in. So it was one of those weird things where I was just like, oh my goodness, I just feel so deeply connected to Scotland, and I just love everything about it. The people there are so just like warm and friendly, and I'm just really excited, of course, to be going to Edinburgh for my little trip. I'm going to go to the Edinburgh Castle, and I think it's just one of those things as well, just kind of visiting again and just kind of just falling back in love with Scotland, and like just kind of getting to know more about my heritage, and I think who I am as a person, my family as well. And yeah, I think my nan has always really instilled in me that it's important to kind of stay in touch with my family, my family ties to Scotland. And so yeah, I'm just really excited to obviously be honouring her. So she's super excited that I'm representing Scotland. She was there actually when I won back in May, and she was thrilled. She couldn't believe it. She was just dancing around after I'd won.
It's interesting. I have a close friend of mine, and I asked her if you could live in any city. She's Australian. I asked her if she could live in any city she wanted, like where would she live? What's her dream city? And she actually said Edinburgh. But she's never
Oh,
been. She's never been there, just to clarify. But for some reason, she felt called to Edinburgh. And everyone talks about, oh, I want to live near the beach. I want to do this. But for some reason, she felt deeply called to Edinburgh. I don't know. She does have Scottish heritage, but I just think it's interesting. You mentioned that your dream house is your nan's house, even though you never saw it. And my
yeah,
friend here wants to live in Edinburgh. I mean, obviously, she lives in Australia. The weather probably here is better than in Edinburgh, but
yeah.
for some reason, that's calling to her. But just before we move to the final 10 questions, you did say that you were learning all these random facts about Scotland, like the deep fried Mars bars. Are there any other weird ones that you yourself, as a Scot, went, hang on, really? Like any other weird facts about Scotland that you care to share with us?
I think one of my favourite things that I just love about Scotland is, of course, Nessie, as we call her, the Loch Ness monster, good old Nessie. And one of my favourite things, I just love the ongoing debate of was she real? I just love the whole backstory of where she's come from, and it's one of those things that I could just listen people talk about it for hours. I just find it so fascinating, and I think one of my favourite things was I remember I think around where my nan grew up, people were just convinced that just one day just some random man just I think I heard one story. It was just like a person with a really long neck that apparently was swimming in the lake. And then I've also just heard stories that people, I don't know, someone just saw like a snake or something, and then it's just turned into this whole thing. So actually, I feel like if you go to different parts in Scotland, there's really weird origin stories of where this monster's come from. I just always find it amusing. I've heard so many. I was just like, I don't know where this has come from, but I don't know. I like to believe that she was real. I just think it's just a fun little part of Scotland that I just think, yeah, I think everyone just knows about the Loch Ness monster, and it actually was an ongoing joke with myself and my sister queens that that was going to be my national costume. I didn't end up going with Nessie because the the options of the costume ideas they were sending me was quite literally just an Amazon onesie of a dinosaur, and I was not going to do that at the Intercontinental stage. So rest assured, everyone, I'm not wearing a onesie for a national costume.
I, I will say that's simultaneously one of the cheapest national costume ideas I've ever heard, and one of the funniest. I can't believe, like, it's this idea of someone who went swimming with a long neck. I mean, how long does your neck have to be confused for a dinosaur? It's just like what's going on there? I mean, so Loch Ness monster, is it real or not? What's your take on this?
Well, this is the debate. I personally like to believe she was real, just because I don't know. I feel like I'm just a very delusional person. I always make jokes about that. I just believe like fairy. I believe in everything. So I just really like to believe that she was real. And because my argument, and I always get into this, like dinosaurs existed, why couldn't she exist if she kind of looks like a dinosaur in a way? So that's kind of my little take on it.
I love talking to lawyers like yourself because even when it comes down to something as ridiculous as a Loch Ness monster, you guys lay out this detailed argument together with all your supporting case evidence. Well, she must have existed because of this, and like,
Yeah.
it's a made up monster. Well, maybe it's not made up, but it's just so funny. Some people just, talk about it as a silly thing. And here you guys are, you lawyers, like, no,
No,
but because
it's
of this,
real.
let me lay out my closing arguments to support my case. I'm like, it's okay. I got it. It's funny. Libby, just before we get to the final 10 questions, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Oh, well, of course. I was going to say Loch Ness Monster. I'm not giving a shout out. I'll say, I've got to definitely say my lovely little nan, Sheila, just because she's been one of my biggest supporters since I started pageantry. We call her our little fairy godmother. She's always steaming my dresses till like 2 a.m. in
Oh,
the morning. And she's always making those little just any outfit alteration, she's always there. She travels up and down the country with me just to watch me. So, and of course, she is the main reason why I specifically wanted to have the Scotland title, because you could obviously put your preference, and I put my preference as Scotland for her. So I'm just so excited for her to see me on the Intercontinental stage, and obviously my mum, because she does fund me. She funds the bank of the pageants, and you know, she's a big fan of the show. So I have to give her a shout out. But yeah, no, she's just like the best pageant mum. And of course my little sister, who obviously inspires like, all my amazing just work, and I just love her, and she's just my little sidekick in life. So I just give her a shout out anytime I can. But yeah.
there. Speaking of mums, a bit embarrassing mums. There was a UK queen. Actually, if I named her, I won't. If I named her, you'd know her. And I interviewed her, and she sent me this screenshot after our interview, where her mum, I can't remember if it was her mum or grandmum. I think it was her mum, had watched our interview and sent this to this girl. She sent me the screenshot. Wow, he's pretty cute, isn't he? And I was like, oh my god, I was embarrassed for
Oh
her.
no.
I was like, oh, so at least your mum hasn't gone that far.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious because you refer to your nan as little. Is that just like a term of endearment, or is she actually like
Oh no,
small?
she's very small.
Okay.
We just joke. I think every time we see her, she shrinks. I just think she's getting smaller and smaller.
So you can take her in your carry-on luggage
I
to
will
Egypt then.
put her in.
Dear me. But it's great to see that it's like a family affair. So she's helping you out. That's lovely to see. All right. Let's get to these final 10 questions. So number one, what is your favorite word?
My favourite word is probably manifest, just because I say it probably all the time. I'm just very into positive thinking and stuff like that. So I think manifest is just such a positive word. So yeah, I just feel like it's just a feel good word. So yeah, I say that's my favourite.
What is your least favorite word?
My least favourite word is probably negative. I just try and keep all that negative energy away from myself. So yeah, I try not to use that word or even think of like anything negative at all. So yeah.
In life, what gets you excited or what turns you on?
I would say I am a massive foodie. So although I'm a bit of a picky eater, I would say I do love trying new food, especially that kind of does link into traveling. I love trying new experiences in life, so traveling to new places, again, links in trying different foods from different cultures. I just say that just makes me like super happy. Just anytime like pasta's in front of me, I'm happy.
But you haven't tried haggis. That would be new for you.
It would be new for me, but I have my limits, I'm afraid. Haggis. I draw the line at haggis.
What turns you off? And please don't say haggis.
The man that invented technology. I would say, oh, I'd probably say people that aren't open minded, like very close minded people. And that can just be from anything. It doesn't have to be like pageantry, or it can just be anything. I always try and keep an open mind, and like the people I like to keep around me are people that are obviously encouraging and like wanting to build everyone up. So I think I'm just not a fan of people that always try and belittle others. I I don't think it's very demure, as they say nowadays.
I hate that word. I hate that
I'm
word.
sorry. It's just logged
So
in my brain. I can't stop saying it.
I shared it on my Instagram story about this word. Like, now that you've all learned the word demure, can you please now learn
Yeah.
all the different words? Like, basically, can you actually learn the English language? Oh, it's so demure. I'm like, do you even know what this word means? You clearly
Honestly,
don't, given the
no,
context.
I don't. Just say
So
it.
I just hate that word. Anyway,
That's your
um,
least favorite word.
yeah, no, it really is, because when people use it, I'm like, do you actually know what this word means? Because as a kid growing up, you would find me as an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, all the other kids are running outside, right? I was in the library at 8, 9 years old reading books that are 400, 500 pages thick. And so, you get a vocabulary, you build your perspicacity, to use a big
Yes.
word. And then there's all these people who are saying, oh, that's so demure. I'm like, just gonna bang my head against the brick wall. Anyway, my personal foibles aside, so number 7, if you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
So, mine would be the ability to just turn invisible at any given moment, just because I am prone to embarrassing, awkward moments in public. So I just feel that would just be great for me. Just anytime I trip and fall, just disappear immediately. No one knows it's me. So yeah.
Have you done this on a pageant stage?
Ironically, no. It's just in
Good.
public, just in crowds, anywhere. I've fallen downstairs in McDonald's before, just randomly. Just anytime there's just people around me, I just seem to be clumsy.
Are you
So
a graceful faller?
no, there's nothing graceful about my falling. That's
I,
why the
I,
invisibility would be great.
I mean, if you're invisible, you can still fall downstairs. People will hear it; they just won't know what was that sound. I don't.
Like, what's going on? I just see someone like just.
Oh dear. I don't want to say I would like to see this, because I don't want to watch you falling down, but just this picture of, pageant queen just face planting in the middle of the street. That's quite a. Anyway, I got so set off, triggered by the word demure, that I forgot to ask you some questions. So let's back up. What is your favorite sound?
My favorite sound would be when waves are crashing on the beach. I just love that. It just kind of just brings me back to like any like summertime. It just yeah, I just find it very peaceful. So I say that's my favorite sound.
What sound do you hate?
I hate with a passion the sound of building work, especially because for the last 3 months in my office building, they have been doing some sort of work that I don't know what they're doing. There's been no progression. They're there every morning drilling and nothing's changing. But every time I'm typing, I can just hear it in the back of my mind. So I'd say any kind of building work, no.
What job would you most like to attempt?
Ooh, I would love to be an actor because it was one of those many hobbies I tried when I was younger, and I really wish I just would have stuck to it. So maybe either that or kind of maybe even being a film director, just something within film or acting. I think that would be a really fun, creative job.
What job would you not like to attempt?
Anything that involves maths or teaching maths, as I was not very good at maths, so I would like to just never do maths ever again. Just keep me away from anything math related.
I will say, from having spoken to a few lawyers now, the one of the unifying things is you're all bad at maths. I'm just realizing this now. It feels like it's the key to being a lawyer. Be bad at
Oh yeah.
maths.
If you're terrible at maths, you can always be a lawyer. Don't worry. We welcome. We welcome.
Final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I would like to. I would like to be welcomed with the sentence of "Welcome to the next chapter" or "Welcome to the next phase." I just think, just like a really positive, really encouraging, just encouraging words. Just anything like, you know, "Welcome to the next phase of your life" or the afterlife, whatever that is.
Well, Libby, that's about it. I was going to say I enjoyed it up until the point where you used that word demure.
Oh
So, I mean,
no.
apart from that, I enjoyed the rest of the interview. I hate that word so much. I'm,
Oh no.
it's actually
That's
the
so
first time that word has come up in an interview, and I'm just like, now if anyone else watches it, I'm like, they're going to put it in every sentence, and I'm just
yeah.
going to have to leave the interview. I don't know
Just log
why I
off.
hate it. Yeah, like I'm done. Thank you. No demure here. Bye. Demure free zone. But thank you so much for coming on, and best of luck over in Egypt.
Thank you very much. No, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really grateful for the opportunity, yeah, to just talk to you. But yeah, I had so much fun. Thanks.
It sounds like your mum will be jealous. That's
She's
also
watching this probably right now, and probably she'll probably get an email. No, no, she won't email me. Probably she'll. I don't know why I said that, but probably after this interview, she'll just interrogate me about how the interview went because she's your biggest fan.
good. Well, I appreciate any fan. So thank you very much for watching, Mrs. Smith. But Libby, I'll keep you on the line for just a sec whilst I hang out with the audience. Thanks everyone for watching, and we will speak to you next time.